The crash in the forest. Jason lived alone in a small wooden cabin, deep inside the forest. He liked the quiet. No traffic, no noise, just trees, wind, and birds. He worked as a mechanic in town but came home to peace every evening. That night, rain was falling hard and thunder shook the sky. Suddenly he heard a loud noise. Boom! It wasn't thunder. It sounded different. Metal crashing, trees breaking, something heavy hitting the earth. Jason stood up from his chair. What was that? He whispered to himself. He grabbed his flashlight, put on his coat, and stepped outside. The rain hit his face. The wind pushed against him. Far in the distance, he saw a thin line of smoke rising through the trees. His heart beat faster. I have to see what happened, he said. He followed the smoke. His boots sank into wet ground. The forest was dark, cold, and full of strange sounds. But he kept walking. After 20 minutes, he reached a small clearing. His eyes widened. In the middle of broken trees lay something large and shiny. It was a ship, a small alien ship, half buried in mud. Its metal was twisted. Fire burned around it. Sparks flew. Jason stepped closer carefully. Part of the ship's door had broken off. He peered inside. At first he saw nothing, just smoke. Then he heard a soft sound, a whimper, a cry. He stepped inside. There, on the floor of the ship, lay a figure, a woman, not human. Her skin was pale blue. Her long silver hair was dirty and wet. She wore a torn dark cloak. Blood ran down her side. She held something tight against her chest. Jason moved closer and saw it was a small alien child, a girl. She was shaking. Her big glowing eyes were full of fear. She looked about 5 years old. The mother raised her hand weakly. No, please, she whispered in a strange accent. I won't hurt you, Jason said softly. I can help. You're hurt. The mother winced in pain. The child cried louder. Jason made a quick decision. He picked up the mother carefully. She was light, too light. The child screamed but did not fight when he gently picked her up next. You're safe, he said again, trying to calm them. He carried them both back through the rain. It took longer this time. He was carrying weight, and the ground was slippery. The little girl cried the whole time, holding tightly to her mother. Finally, he reached his cabin. He kicked the door open, rushed inside, and placed them both on his couch. He quickly turned on the heater and covered them with blankets. The child still shook. The mother's eyes were half closed. She was losing blood. Jason opened his old first aid box. I'll clean your wound, he told her. She didn't answer, but she didn't resist. He pulled her cloak aside carefully and saw the injury on her ribs. A long, deep cut. It looked like metal had sliced her. He cleaned it, wrapped bandages around her, and made sure it wasn't bleeding anymore. The mother winced in pain but stayed silent. The girl clung to her mother and stared at Jason with wide eyes. She didn't blink. Jason poured warm water in a cup and offered it to them. The girl didn't move, but the mother took it slowly and drank. Thank you, she whispered. Jason nodded. You're lucky to be alive. She didn't answer. She looked away. Jason didn't ask questions. He didn't know where they came from or why they crashed, but one thing was clear. They were scared. That night, he placed more blankets on the couch and gave them warm soup. The child still wouldn't. The mother took tiny sips and covered the girl with her arm. Jason sat in a chair nearby, watching them. He didn't sleep. He just waited in case they needed help again. At midnight, the girl finally looked at him and spoke for the first time. Are you going to sell us? Jason was shocked. No. Why would I do that? The girl blinked. Others did. Jason felt a knot in his chest. What had they been through? He shook his head slowly. No. You're safe here. I promise. The mother's eyes filled with tears. She turned her head away so Jason wouldn't see, but he saw. And in that moment he decided, No matter who they were or where they came from, he wouldn't let anyone hurt them again, not while they were under his roof. They don't trust him, The fire in the fireplace gave a soft glow. The rain outside had stopped, but the forest was still wet and quiet. Inside the cabin, the alien mother and her child slept, curled together under thick blankets on the couch. Jason sat in the nearby chair, staring at them. He still couldn't believe what had happened. An alien ship, a wounded mother, a frightened child. And now, they were in his living room. The morning sun peeked through the window. Jason stood up and walked to the kitchen. He made some toast and eggs, simple food, but warm. He placed a small plate near the mother. She was awake now, her eyes watching him closely. "You need food," Jason said gently. She didn't speak. She just looked at him like a trapped animal. The child sat up slowly. Her silver hair was messy. She pulled the blanket tightly around herself and crawled close to her mother. "Is it poisoned?" she asked. Jason froze. "No," he said quickly. "It's just food. Human food. I thought you might be hungry." The little girl didn't move. Jason sighed and stepped away to give them space. Minutes passed. Slowly, the mother picked up the toast. She sniffed it, then took a small bite. She nodded to the girl. "It's safe," she whispered. The child took her first bite. Her eyes lit up for a second, but then she quickly looked away from Jason again. They were still afraid. Jason didn't blame them. Later that day, the mother tried to stand. She winced and held her side. The pain from the wound was still strong. Jason moved to help her. "You shouldn't walk yet," he said. She pulled away. "I don't know you," she said in a low voice. Jason nodded slowly. "I understand." He looked at the child. "What's your name?" She didn't answer. He tried again. "I'm Jason. I live here alone. I won't hurt you. I just want to help." The girl hesitated. "My name is Ziri," she said. The mother gave her a quick look, half warning, half protective. "And your mother?" Jason asked softly. The woman answered, "Letha." "Nice to meet you," Jason said kindly. Letha didn't smile. As the day went on, Jason brought more blankets and set up a bed on the floor for them. He let them rest while he worked outside, chopping wood and checking the area. That's when he saw it, a strange blinking light on the ground, near the edge of the woods. He walked over. It was a small device. Round, metallic, still warm. Jason picked it up carefully and turned it over. A tiny screen showed blinking alien symbols. He had seen tech like this in news reports. It was a tracker. His blood ran cold. Someone, or something, was searching for them. Jason hurried back to the cabin. He went inside and locked the door. Letha sat up fast. "What happened?" He showed her the tracker. Her face went pale. Her hands trembled. "They found us," she whispered. "It's not safe here." "Who's they?" Jason asked. She looked down at Ziri. The girl was trying not to cry. "The ones who owned us," Letha said. "We ran. We stole a ship. We just wanted to be free." Jason clenched his fists. "And now they're chasing you?" Letha nodded. "They don't forgive escape. We're not people to them. We're just property." Jason's voice was low. "Not anymore." That night, Jason made plans. He hid the tracker under a metal pan to block its signal. Then he showed Letha a small door under the rug. "A storm shelter," he said. "Underground. If they come, hide. There." Letha stared at him. "Why are you helping us?" Jason paused. He looked at Ziri, who had fallen asleep again in a blanket. "My wife and daughter died 3 years ago. Car accident. I couldn't save them." He looked at Letha. "I won't fail again." Letha didn't answer, but her eyes softened. For the first time, she didn't look away. At midnight, Jason stood near the window holding his rifle. The forest was silent, but he didn't trust the silence. He looked at the sleeping mother and child. They still didn't trust him completely, but that didn't matter, because he had already made a silent promise. He would protect them, even if it cost him everything. A secret behind the wound. The rain was gone, but the ground was still wet. Mist rolled through the forest and cold air hung heavy around the cabin. Inside, Jason watched Letha sleep on the floor, curled beside her daughter. Her breathing was soft, but uneasy. Her skin had a strange bluish shade, not just her natural color, but something deeper, like sickness beneath the surface. Jason knelt beside her with the first aid kit. He had changed her bandages before, but something about the wound bothered him. It wasn't healing like it should. He carefully unwrapped the layers. Ziri, the little girl, stirred from sleep. She rubbed her glowing eyes and crawled to her mother, holding her hand tightly. "Is she dying?" Ziri asked in a small voice. Jason looked into her eyes and said quietly, "Not if I can help it." He peeled back the last piece of cloth. The cut was deep, but now he could see something beneath the blood and bruises. Something strange. It was a mark. Burned into Letha's skin, just above her ribs, was a symbol. Not a tattoo. Not a wound. It looked like it had been branded there. Ziri gasped. "Don't touch it!" Jason pulled back slightly. "What is this?" Letha opened her eyes. Weak, her voice barely a whisper. "It's ownership." Jason frowned. "What?" "It means I belong to someone," she said. "A mark of slavery." Jason stood up, fists clenched. "Someone did this to you?" Letha nodded slowly. "I wasn't born free. I was made to serve." Jason walked outside for air, heart pounding. His hands shook. He had seen suffering before, but this was cruelty on a different level. He looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, someone still believed they owned Letha and her daughter. Someone branded her like an object. He wouldn't let them take her back. Never. Back inside, Letha tried to sit up again, but pain stopped her. Jason helped her gently this time, and she didn't pull away. "I want to clean the wound again," he said. "It's not healing right. Maybe it's infected." Letha nodded. Jason cleaned the skin around the mark, carefully, gently. He avoided the burned edges of the symbol, but as he cleaned deeper, something surprised him. Tiny black threads were inside the flesh, moving. He grabbed a magnifying glass and leaned closer. "What the hell?" he whispered. Ziri peeked over his shoulder. "It's a tracker," she said. Jason turned. "A what?" Letha coughed, then answered. "The mark isn't just a scar, it's a living tracker. They burn it in with microwires. As long as it's in me, they'll find us." Jason stared at her. "They branded you with tech?" Letha looked ashamed. "Yes." "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because you're human," she said. "And I didn't trust you." Ziri touched Jason's arm. "But I think we can now." Jason stood and paced the room. "We need to remove it," he said. Letha blinked. "It's deep in my skin." "I don't care," Jason replied. "If that thing is tracking you, we need to take it out now." He pulled open a drawer and brought out a small medical knife and tweezers. His hands shook slightly. Letha looked at him, then nodded. "Do it." Jason knelt beside her. "This will hurt." "I've felt worse," she said softly. Ziri held her mother's hand tight. Jason took a deep breath. He made a small cut around the edge of the burn. Letha winced but didn't scream. Slowly, carefully, he dug under the skin with the tool. The wires writhed like tiny worms. He finally pulled out a small black chip, no larger than a grain of rice. It was glowing faintly red. Ziri pointed. "That's it." Jason dropped it into a metal cup and smashed it with the blunt side of the knife. Sparks flew and the glow died. Letha passed out. Jason cleaned the wound again and stitched it carefully. Ziri stayed close, silent and brave. When he was done, he covered Letha with a warm blanket and tucked her in. "You saved her," Ziri whispered. Jason looked at the girl. I'll keep saving her if I have to. You both. The little alien girl looked down, then slowly wrapped her arms around his neck. Thank you, Jason. Jason held her gently. He had lost one family. Maybe he had just found a new one. Outside the cabin, far in the sky, a large ship blinked in the clouds. Someone had lost the tracker signal, but they were still watching. And they were angry. Voices. In the woods, it was just past midnight when Jason woke up. He had fallen asleep in the chair near the fire. The cabin was warm and quiet, but something felt wrong. The air had changed. There was no wind outside, no rain, no crickets, no owl calls, only silence. Jason sat up slowly and reached for his old rifle. He didn't trust silence in the forest. Not after everything. Letha and Ziri were still asleep on the floor, curled together under heavy blankets. Letha's face was pale. Her body was still weak after the tracker removal. Jason had done what he could. Now, he had to protect them. He moved quietly to the window and peeked through the curtain. Movement, shadows between the trees. His heart stopped. There were figures in the woods. 4, maybe 5. Not walking like hunters. Not like animals. They moved in a way that felt trained. Jason whispered to himself, "They're here." He locked the cabin door and turned off the fire. The room went dark. He walked to Letha and gently shook her shoulder. Her eyes opened fast. "They've come," Jason said softly. "You and Ziri go to the storm cellar now." Letha sat up quickly and woke her daughter. Ziri didn't cry. She just clutched her mother's hand tightly. Jason lifted the rug and opened the trapdoor. "Stay down there. Don't make a sound. I'll handle it." Letha looked up at him. "You'll be outnumbered." Jason smiled, but his eyes were serious. "Let them try." The storm shelter was deep under the cabin, made of thick metal and old concrete. Jason had stocked it with supplies for years, just in case of earthquakes or wildfires. He never imagined he'd use it to hide a wounded alien family. He closed the trapdoor gently and placed a large chest over it. Now he was alone. Jason moved around the cabin, silently loading his rifle and checking every window. He had old tricks, mirror shards on window corners, empty cans hanging on wires outside to make noise if kicked. He waited near the front door. Nothing. Then, a faint sound. Click. The back door. He crept down the hallway, heart pounding. Outside, the glass, a tall figure in dark armor, slowly moved toward the back of the cabin. It had no face, only a black mask with glowing red eyes. Its hand carried a weapon, long, sharp, alien. Jason's breath caught. Another figure joined it. Then another. Suddenly, clang. A can outside fell. Someone had stepped on the wire. Jason moved fast. He flipped a switch and floodlights snapped on outside, lighting the forest. He pointed the rifle through the window and fired once. The armored figure ducked behind a tree. Now, they knew he wasn't helpless, but they weren't running. They were waiting. Jason grabbed his backup pistol and ran to the front. Another sound. Voices. Not human. A low whisper, like metal grinding with speech. He couldn't understand the language, but he could feel the intent. Find, take, kill. Suddenly, a voice rang out, this time in broken English. "We know. She is here." Jason didn't answer. "You cannot hide her. The brand calls her back. Return the product." Product. That word burned in his ears. Jason stepped onto the porch, gun in hand. "Get off my land." A pause. Then soft laughter. "You are a lone human. She is ours. The child too." "Step aside." Jason aimed his rifle. "She's not your property. You will die for her." Jason narrowed his eyes. "Then I'll die standing." Silence. Then, they attacked. Figures rushed from both sides. Jason fired 3 shots. One hit, one missed, one grazed armor. A red-eyed figure leapt over the porch rail. Jason punched it with the butt of his gun and rolled back inside, slamming. The door, a window shattered. Another invader came in. Jason fired point blank. Sparks flew from its armor, but it fell. 2 more came through the back. Jason ducked behind furniture, using every old instinct he had. He fought like a man who had already lost everything and refused to lose again. Then, boom. A flash of blue light exploded in the center of the room. Jason covered his eyes. When the smoke cleared, one of the attackers had fallen, burned across the chest. Jason turned to see Letha, standing at the top of the cellar stairs. Her eyes glowed, bright silver. She raised her hand again, palm shining with alien energy. I said, "We are not property," she growled. She threw another blast of power, sending an armored invader crashing through the wall. Ziri ran to Jason and grabbed his hand. "You're bleeding." Jason smiled through the pain. "Just a scratch." Together, Jason, Letha, and even little Ziri fought back. The attackers were fast and strong, but they were not expecting a human who didn't give up. And they were not expecting a mother who would fight like death itself to protect her child. One by one, the intruders fell or fled. Finally, silence. Real silence. Not the scary kind. The peaceful kind, the kind Jason loved. They stood in the broken cabin, breathing hard. Letha walked to Jason. Her voice was soft. "You didn't have to fight." Jason looked at her. "Yes, I did." She reached out and touched his arm, gently with trust. "You're not just protecting us," she said. "You're becoming one of us." Jason smiled. "Then let them come again." The girl calls him. "Dad, the cabin was damaged. Walls were cracked, the door was off its hinges, and one window was just a frame now. But somehow, inside, it felt warmer than ever before. For the first time in days, no one was bleeding. No one was running. No one was hiding. They had survived the attack." Jason woke up on the floor beside the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket. His shoulder was bandaged thanks to Letha. The pain was sharp, but he didn't mind. What mattered was the sound in the room. Laughter. Ziri was playing with an old wooden train Jason had carved long ago. She had made a tiny alien doll from leftover cloth and was pushing it in the train. The cabin had never felt this alive. Jason sat up and stretched. "You're up early," he said with a smile. Ziri looked up. Her eyes sparkled. "I didn't sleep much. The fire was warm. I wanted to stay awake." Jason walked over and poured her some warm milk. "It's not alien food, but it helps in the morning," Ziri giggled. "It tastes funny, but it's nice." Jason grinned. "It's called cow milk." She made a face. "A cow? Is that a monster?" Jason laughed. "Not at all. They're big, slow, and very kind." Letha entered the room slowly, still weak but upright. Her long silver hair was tied back. She looked at Jason, then at her daughter. "She hasn't laughed like this in months," she said softly. Jason handed her a mug of tea. "She's safe now." Letha didn't answer, but her eyes said thank you. They all sat together at the table. It was a small thing, but to Jason, it felt like a feast. A quiet breakfast with a mother and her daughter. Something normal. Something human. Something he hadn't had since the accident that took his own family. Later, Jason stepped outside to chop some firewood. His shoulder hurt, but he managed. The forest was quiet again. The enemies hadn't returned. He was halfway through, stacking logs when he heard a tiny voice behind him. "Jason?" He turned. Ziri was there, holding something behind her back. "Yes?" She stepped closer and shyly pulled out a drawing, scribbled with crayons and pencil. It showed 3 figures, one tall man, one tall woman with silver hair, and one little girl underneath. In large shaky letters it said, "My new family." Jason took a deep breath. He looked at the picture for a long time. Then softly Ziri asked, "Can I call you something else?" Jason knelt to her level. "Like what?" she whispered. "Can I call you Dad?" Jason froze. Tears stung his eyes. He had lost his daughter in a car crash 3 years ago. She had been about the same age. He still remembered her laughter, her hugs. Now here was another little girl, broken, scared, but smiling again. Jason swallowed hard. His voice cracked. "You can call me whatever you like." Ziri wrapped her arms around him. "Thank you, Dad." Inside the cabin, Letha had heard it all. She stood behind the door, hand over her heart, eyes wide. She hadn't cried since escaping her captors. But now, silent tears ran down her cheeks. That night, they sat together by the fire. Ziri fell asleep on Jason's lap, her little arms still hugging his chest. Letha sat nearby, watching quietly. "She's never had a father," she said at last. "Her real one died in the mines." Jason nodded slowly. "I lost my wife and daughter. I was broken for years." He looked down at Ziri. "She brought me back." Letha's voice trembled. "You've done more than I ever hoped. You fed us, you fought for us, you let us stay, and now—" Jason looked up. She smiled, soft and tired. "You gave my daughter a father." Outside, snow began to fall. Light flakes drifted onto the trees, soft and quiet. The fire crackled. For now, the war was far away. No ships in the sky, no trackers, no threats, just a family forming in the ruins. Not by blood, not by fate, but by choice. Their past arrives with fire. The snow had covered the forest like a blanket. Everything looked peaceful. Still. Safe. Jason stacked the last piece of chopped wood near the cabin door. His shoulder still ached, but the pain had become familiar now, just like the quiet footsteps he heard behind him. It was Letha. She stood in the snow with a scarf around her neck and a soft smile on her face. Her silver hair caught the sunlight, and for a second she almost looked human. "Ziri's building something," she said gently. "She said it's a snow house, come for all three of us." Jason smiled. "Sounds like a mansion." Letha chuckled, and for a moment, all the fear in her face disappeared. But that peace did not last. Far above, hidden in the clouds, a ship blinked to life. It was sleek, dark, silent. Inside, a voice gave the order. "Send the signal. Lock on the burn mark. Begin descent." Though the tracker had been removed, a trace of its signal remained, just enough for their enemies to follow the scent. And now, they were here. That evening, Jason sat by the fire, Ziri asleep in his lap again. Letha watched the flames, her eyes soft, but her body still tense, like she was waiting for something. Jason noticed. "You okay?" She hesitated. "Sometimes. When things get too quiet, I get scared." Jason nodded. "Me too." Just then, boom, the ground shook. Jason jumped up. Ziri woke with a scream. Letha stood fast. The sky outside turned orange. Jason rushed to the window. His blood froze. A ship had landed right there in the clearing. Its engines burned the snow away. The trees shook. The ship was bigger than the last one, heavily armed, painted with red alien symbols. Jason grabbed his rifle. "Basement! Now!" Letha pulled Ziri and ran. Jason kicked over the rug and opened the storm shelter. But before they could climb down, a voice echoed through the forest, deep, booming, and cold. "Letha of Sector 17, your time is over. Come out now or we take the child." Letha froze. Ziri began to cry. Jason looked at her. "What are they talking about?" Letha whispered. "They're not just soldiers. They're the Empress's hand." Jason stared. "Who?" "She owns the mines. The slaves. She thinks I stole her property." "Ziri." Jason blinked. "But Ziri's your daughter." Letha looked down. Her voice shook. "Not by blood." Jason couldn't speak. Letha continued. "Ziri was born in the colony, taken from another slave, but I couldn't leave her there. I ran. With her. Jason felt his chest tighten. So they're after both of you. Letha nodded. And they don't forgive. The cabin shook again. Outside, the ship's ramp dropped open. 6 figures stepped out, taller than before, clad in armor black as space. Their faces were hidden. Their weapons hummed with energy. Jason stood at the door with his gun. You're not taking them. One of the armored soldiers raised a device. Flash. Jason flew backward, crashing into the wall. Ziri screamed. Letha's hands began to glow, but the soldiers were faster now, smarter. 2 of them shot a trap net into the room. Electric bolts flashed across the floor. Jason tried to stand, but his legs were weak. Get up, Ziri cried. Letha screamed and unleashed a blast of power from her hands, but it bounced off the soldiers' shields. One of them raised his arm and spoke coldly. Enough. The soldier aimed a red beam straight at Ziri. Jason pushed forward, roaring. He tackled the soldier just in time. The beam missed and hit the wall. Letha pulled Ziri back, shielding her with her body. Then a loud howl filled the air. The soldiers paused. Jason looked toward the trees. The forest was moving. Shadows raced between trees, large, fast, and growling. Suddenly, alien wolves burst out of the woods. Creatures of the forest Jason had once fed scraps to. They attacked the soldiers with speed and fury. Jason shouted, Letha! Run! Letha! Grabbed Ziri and darted to the shelter. Jason covered them as best he could. The wolves were wild and powerful, distracting the invaders long enough for Letha to get Ziri underground. Jason turned to run, but one soldier grabbed his leg. Jason kicked, rolled, and fired. The bullet cracked the soldier's helmet. The red eye inside blinked out. After what felt like hours, but was only minutes, the ship gave a sharp alarm. The remaining soldiers pulled back. Their leader shouted, This isn't over. They climbed back into the ship. It rose fast, burning the trees below. And then they were gone. Jason lay on the ground, panting. His shirt was torn. His ribs hurt, but he was alive, and the girls were safe. Later that night, Letha tended his wounds. Her hands shook as she wrapped a bandage around his chest. You could have died, she said. Jason smiled weakly. But I didn't. Ziri stood, nearby, hugging her doll. Dad saved us, she whispered. Letha looked into Jason's eyes. For the first time, there was no fear in hers, only something softer, something deeper. He's more than just Dad now, she said. Jason didn't understand at first, but she smiled. He's our guardian, not a refuge. A family. The sky had cleared. The stars were brighter than ever. Jason sat alone on the broken porch, wrapped in a thick coat, a cup of hot tea in his hand. The cabin behind him was quiet. Safe. For now. Snow covered the ruins of what was once a peaceful home. Burnt wood, cracked walls, smashed windows, but he didn't care, because deep down in the storm shelter, they were alive. Letha, Ziri, his girls now. It had been 3 days since the attack. The enemy ship had vanished, but the threat still hung in the air like smoke. Jason spent the days rebuilding what he could, sealing windows, fixing the door, adding traps and signals around the trees. At night he listened to Letha hum old alien songs as Ziri slept. That sound. It meant home. One evening, Ziri sat at the table drawing again. This time she had made 4 figures. One had long hair like Letha. One was tall and bearded like Jason. One was her, smiling. But the last one was small and curled up in her arms. Jason pointed. Who's that? Ziri smiled shyly. A baby. Jason blinked. A baby? Ziri nodded. Mama says families grow. Maybe one day we'll have more. Jason looked at Letha, who was standing by the fireplace. Her eyes met his. She didn't say anything, but she didn't look away. That night, Jason sat beside Letha under the stars. Ziri had fallen asleep in a pile of blankets beside the fire. Used to think I was meant to live alone, Jason said. Letha listened quietly. I lost everything. My daughter, my wife, my purpose. This place wasn't a home, it was a cage. He turned to look at her. Then you crashed into my woods. She gave a soft laugh. That wasn't the plan. Jason smiled. But it saved me. A long silence followed. Then Letha whispered, You gave me more than safety. Jason looked confused. You gave me a name, she said. Not slave, not product, not the marked one. You called me mother. You called me strong. You looked at me like I was worth saving. Jason gently took her hand. Because you are. The next morning they packed what little they had. Jason stared at the forest one last time. We can't stay, he said. Letha agreed. They'll come again, stronger. But we'll be ready, he said. They walked away from the cabin. Ziri rode on Jason's shoulders, pointing at birds and trees and laughing. She wasn't scared anymore. 1 year later, a small farm sat near the edge of a mountain ridge, far from cities, far from scanners, far from war. 3 people lived there. A man with kind eyes and rough hands. A woman with silver hair and fire in her soul. And a little girl who never stopped drawing. They grew food. They raised animals. They smiled more. Sometimes visitors passed by. Human, alien, lost, hungry. Jason welcomed them with open arms, because once he had done the same for a mother and her child. Now they did it together. One night, Jason sat on the porch again. Ziri was chasing fireflies. Letha sat beside him, her belly round with life. He placed his hand gently over hers. She'll be strong, he said. Letha smiled. Like her father. Jason blinked. You mean me? She nodded slowly. You became more than a guardian. You became ours. Jason didn't reply. He just held her hand tighter and watched his daughter run through the fireflies, laughing. This wasn't a story of rescue. This was a story of rebirth, of 3 souls who had lost everything and found each other. Not a refuge, not a shelter, a family.